Okay, so simplifying each sum, adding polynomials, you're literally this, to make it sound super simple, you're just combining like terms. In a classroom, and especially in Math 1, I'm a huge highlighter fan, and probably because I have the attention span of a squirrel and I get distracted easily, and 800 things usually happen when I'm trying to do a math problem and actually focus, especially when it's for a grade. So in a Math 1 classroom, or in a classroom even for Math 2, I would have highlighters on every desk and would highly recommend doing it. Because again, like I mentioned earlier in our conversation, this is a simple concept, so these should be ones you get right. But I will say that because they are so simple and you are getting to a level of math where you're doing a lot harder math, you miss them because you take them for granted almost. That you're kind of running and you're like, oh, this is super easy, I got it. Or the print's small, or the font's weird, and you just accidentally miss something. So highlighters are my friend. So I usually go through first when it's addition. So always look to see what your symbol is. When it's addition, you're just cleaning up is what I like to call it. So you're combining like terms. So like the m cubed would go with that negative 6m cubed. And then your negative 8m. And make sure you're highlighting those minuses, because again, that's another one of those little oopses that I was talking about that makes things a little complicated. And then we're just going to put them together. So then with my negative 8m and my 4m, if I owe you $8 and I pay you $4, then I still owe you $4, or 4 monkeys, whatever, if you want to think of it as an M. And the M by itself has an imaginary 1 exponent, so it's going to go at the last because we have M to the third, which is going to go in the front. And that's just putting the polynomial in standard form. So highest exponent to lowest exponent, reading from left to right. So 2m cubed and negative 6m cubed means I owe you 6 monkeys. And then I gave you 2 monkeys, so I owe you 4 monkeys. And then that should be your answer. So negative 4m cubed minus 4m. So again, number 2, we're adding. I'm actually going to skip it because most of you guys said you were good, and I'll do them at the end if we need to go back, because the 2 by 2s is probably not realistic in a Math 2 class, which you're going to see. So go down here to a hot mess where you got a lot of stuff. So again, I'm going to start the same process. So I see x squared. There's my x squared. Then I'm going to go all the way across, and I'm going to find my negative 6x squared. And then I have an x cubed, which is negative 2x cubed. Go down my list, look for more. Positive 2x cubed. Nice. Then I have an 8x, which is positive. And as I go down, I have a 5x, which is positive. And then I have that negative x to the fourth, negative 2x to the fourth, sorry. And that's going to be the only one of those. So it's not really going to combine with anything. It's just going to be as is. So my highest exponent is x to the fourth. So I'm just going to bring him down first, because remember, standard form is highest exponent to lowest exponent. So that negative 2x fourth. Then after 4 would be 3. And we do have some 3s. So that's that negative 2x cubed and positive 2x cubed. So negative 2 plus 2 is going to be 0. For your fact of, like, depending on how your brain works for organization, you can write 0x cubed if you want, just to keep yourself in line. Again, you know where you get confused and where you miss things, because it's Math 2. It's not the first time you've done math, especially like longer math problems. So help yourself. 5x squared, negative 6x squared. So if I have 5, but I spend 6, then I'm in the whole 1. And then last but not least, our x with no exponent, which means it's an imaginary 1. So that's our last guy. So 8x plus 5x is going to give me 13x. And that should be your answer, but you do not want to submit it as such. You want to get rid of this guy, because this guy actually doesn't exist. So the cleaned up form would be 2x to the fourth minus x squared, because remember, a 1 is always assumed, and then plus 13x. And so this should be your final answer for that problem. For sake of time, and because most of you said you pretty much understood it, I'm going to skip addition now, because again, all that really is left to right, cleaning it up, put like terms together. So you're just combining like terms, or simplifying is another word you'll see in the instructions for things of this nature. And then, like I said, my term is clean up, like just put things together that go together, all the things in the same box. So, and like I mentioned earlier as well, differences is where we end up with more issues for most students. So we're going to spend some time doing those. And I think most of the time, again, you get excited because addition is so easy that you don't look for the subtraction in the center, or it's easy to overlook. So the biggest thing is every time you see a problem that looks really simple is one, take a deep breath and look at it again. When I see that subtraction sign right there, that means you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it as just push it all the way through and switch all the signs on the inside. Or we can pretend like this is a -1 and then distribution property where you multiply through. So then that becomes a -4p and a positive 2p squared. And then we have our 8p and plus 8p squared here. So then now this turned into the exact same problem as we had previously in your adding. You're just cleaning up and combining like terms. So 8p, that imaginary 1 exponent, -4p, and then we have 8p squared and 2p squared. 8p squared, 2p squared. So those are our like terms. So we're going to put them together and just clean up, combine like terms. So p is going to be our lowest exponent, so it's going to go at the end. And I'm showing them jumping around, so you can write it out however you like. And you can write it in a mess the first time and then clean it up even more, like reorder, depending on how many, I guess, lines of paper you want to use ultimately. But when it's this small, I suggest, just so you don't lose negatives, doing it in order as you go. So 8p squared and 2p squared is going to give me a 10p squared. And that 4p, so we know we have a plus in the middle because it's a positive. And you don't want to leave that plus out because, again, we're getting to a math class where you have to be very specific in the way you write things, because that plus versus a minus obviously means things. And hopefully, if there's nothing there, you would assume it's multiplication, which is very different than adding or subtracting. So we're working on getting prepared for Math 3 and being very specific and intentional in our math. All right. So does anybody have a question about that one? It's pretty simple. It's pretty small. But I just want to make sure before I just keep talking. And I know I talk fast. So if you have a question, just ding, ding, ding on me. Make some noise. Nothing's popping up, so I'm assuming we're good. So again, stop, really look at this minus, distribute it all the way through. So then you end up with your 2 plus 3m4. They just fall down because it's in the front, so it's on the left-hand side of your paper before that minus. Now the minus is going to go to your m to the fourth, so that's -1 m4th, and it's going to become a -6. So again, we're just going to work to combine our like terms, our matching terms. So I have a 2, a constant 2, and a constant -6. And then I have a constant, I'm sorry, not a constant, 3m, and that's not a highlighter. I'm about to completely black out some work. 3m to the fourth, and then -m to the fourth. And remember that negative is an assumed -1. So m to the fourth is our highest exponent. So to write it in standard form correctly, we're going to have 3 minus 1, or plus a -1, if that makes more sense to you, depending on what teacher you had before me. So that's going to be 2m to the fourth. I have a constant 2 minus 6. So I owe you $6. Then I add $2 or pay you $2. That means it's going to be minus 4. So 2m to the fourth minus 4. And just so you know, when I say have dollars versus given dollars, missing dollars, things like that, most of it is, if we discuss things in money, you don't make mistakes, because let's be real, you're not going to let money just fly out the door. So that will be something probably, as far as my class versus previous classes, positive and negatives are great conversations. But again, we've now reached high school and you've done a lot of positive and negatives. And for the people who still struggle with them, again, when we're talking money, I can usually get you to get on board with me and not make as many oops mistakes. So it's just a conversational change, because, personally, money and food is life. So if there's anything we could do conversationally to make this a little easier, I'm on board. So number 7, again, you have that minus, and that's just a matter of noting that is there. Distribute all the way through. If we have organizational issues, and again, that's not a bad thing, that's just, at this point, if you have organizational issues. So writing neatly, keeping things, I'm going to change this to an X just because my handwriting makes A's and B's look funny in math. distribute all the way through. You may want to draw this arrow as you write down the number. So that way, if you miss something, you can see it in your work. You can find your mistake. You can do your own error analysis. So negative 1 times 6 is going to be a negative 6x to the fourth. Negative 1 times 7 is going to be a negative 7x to the third. Negative 1 times a negative 3 is going to be a positive 3. Woo, but I just added and made stuff up. Magic math. So positive 3, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Again, some of this is going to sound really, really simple and really basic, but we're starting here so you don't mess up on the harder stuff. So I'm going to start organizing again. So I start from left to right just for organizational purposes. Constants to constants. X to the fourth, that's a negative 1x to the fourth, a negative 6x to the fourth. And then we have negative 7x to the third. So we're going to write that out. In the event that you see the negative 7x to the third, and that's exciting because there's nothing there, that's fine. Start there. But we know who goes in front is x to the fourth because the highest exponent to the front, lowest at the end. So we're lining them up, tallest to shortest, like picture day. So we have x to the fourth, negative 1, negative 6. That means I spent $1. Then I spent $6. That means I spent a total of $7. And then last but not least, our constants. We had 6 because it's a positive, and then we have 3, so we have 9. So again, really the same thing. The biggest kicker is making sure you note that minus and you send it all the way through to the right. A lot of people will miss the guy in the front, and I did not look at this close enough. I might make a change on one of these. Yep. For conversation, because this is where a lot of errors happen. Let's pretend like this x was negative in the beginning, because that front guy for some reason always gets bumped off, especially if it was already negative. So in the event this was already negative, so if you're printing this and you're watching it, you want to go change that. I'm changing this x to a negative. We're going to distribute. So that's going to be that positive x now, because negative times a negative makes it positive. Negative times 4x to the x cubed. It's going to be negative 4x cubed. Negative 1 times 2 is going to be negative 2x to the fourth. Then again, you want to bring this down. Make sure you make that a plus in front, especially when you bring it down. Probably for most people, it's better to bring these down before you start distributing. But again, we're in math 2. You know what you need. I'm not trying to unteach anything you've done before. Just trying to teach you a little bit more and make things better. So combining my x cubes with my highlighters. Positive 2x to the fourth, negative 2x to the fourth. I get silly excited when I see the same numbers in a positive and negative form because I feel like it's less work because it's going away. Less things to write, I guess. Just pure lazy, actually. So again, for conversation, 0x to the fourth, because I had to and then I lost 2. Then x to the third is the next lowest exponent. So negative 4x to the third and x to the third. That means I have 1, I spent 4. Minus 3x to the third. And then last but not least, our blue or our x, just our variable. So that's going to be plus x. Now again, don't write this in, especially Delta Math. Hopefully we're going to get IXL one of these days. I'm fighting for it because some of our Delta Math stuff gets pretty wiry. Not that anybody really loves IXL, but hopefully that's coming up too sooner than later. But don't put this guy in there because that 0 means it doesn't really actually exist. So your actual answer should be negative 3x cubed plus x. Random yellow pen for your final answer. Sorry. I'm going to skip down to some like big boogers. So this guy is going to be more like what you're going to see. Because again, you've been combining like terms and cleaning up or simplifying since probably maybe even before 8th grade. So to put it on level, it's going to have to be a process of your organizational skills again. Because distributing a negative 1 all the way through, you did it hopefully a ton in Math 1. And again, it was definitely or should have been exposed in math or 8th grade math. So if you're looking for trying to decipher what you think a quiz question or a test question might look like, it's going to be bigger. And that, like I said, it's really just making sure you know to distribute and testing your grit, making sure you can get through it and not lose anything, teaching you to slow down a bit. So I'm going to bring down what I have in the front first, because that stuff just comes down. Then distribute that -1 to that 5x, -1 to x to the 4th, so -x to the 4th, -6x squared, -2x cubed. All right, now we're ready to rock and roll. So personally, this makes my head hurt. This is a lot. But that's why I bring in my highlighters. Okay, Jakaya, just come back at 9:40 or hang out. I mean, it's still good skills. No worries. Up to you. So 6x is our constant. I'm sorry, not a constant. It's the variable with a 1 exponent, so we're going to find the ones that match. X cubed, -2x cubed, -2x to the 4th, -x to the 4th, and then we need one more color. Where's my orange highlighter? There it is. -4x squared, -6x squared. All right, so we're going to clean up. My highest exponent is going to be x to the 4th. So I owe 2 and I owe 1. So that's -3x to the 4th. Our next exponent is x to the 3rd. So x to the 3rd, -2x to the 3rd. I have 1. I lost 2. So -x to the 3rd. Then x squared, which is going to be our orange guy. I lost 4, I lost 6, or I owe 4, I owe 6 is -10x squared. Then I have x, and that's I have 6, I lost 5, so I have 1. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, 1, 2, 3, 4 colors. So I know I've pulled down everybody. If you don't have highlighters or you don't have a way of differentiating, I used to write them very big and do circles, triangles, squares around each one. And so put all my circles together, put all my triangles together. So if you're not a color person, it's just, again, an organizational, because this concept should be fairly easy. It's an organizational issue. I am going to stop doing problems. And if you have questions, send me an email or ask them now.